Good morning, those you guys are joining up. Good morning, guys. Good morning, good morning, good morning. How are we doing? Christina, Drew, Lucas. Again, just always give it a few minutes for everybody to kind of file in, and then we'll get started. Morning, Alex. Good morning, Aiden. Morning, Alex. Zach, how we doing? Grant, Sana, what are teachers' thoughts on online school? That's a good question to ask as we kind of wait for people to get here. I don't know, man. I find it interesting. So this morning, I'm sure you saw Dr. Cottrell's message to everybody, and um, like the whole pep talk thing that Ms. Petraglia gave. Good morning, Luke, and like how they said that other teachers wanted to do it. So I kind of recorded one, and my thoughts on it are this: there's really so much that we can't control, right? I personally don't mind it, just because one, it's something to do during the day. It breaks up my day. I get to communicate with people other than 2 6-year-olds throughout the day, so that's kind of nice. But I'm also in a unique situation. My kids are old enough that they can play by themselves upstairs. I give them specific things to do during the stream, so I don't really have to worry about managing them too much. But in terms of what I think about it, I don't mind it. I'm happy that I'm able to continue working, and able to continue receiving pay, and making sure I'm actually trying to do a good job, and do the right thing, in order to warrant said pay. That's the reality of it, right? Because we're in an economics class right now. You see what the economy's like. You see all the people that are really, really kind of worried about everything. So that's my personal thoughts on it. I don't hate it. I would much rather be in the classroom, because I feel like there's a lot that we can't do just because of the distance. But we'll figure that out. But I'm happy that I'm still doing something, and I'm not just passing out notes to you guys and giving you assignments and then just kind of being like, all right, well, best of luck, do it all on your own. So even though I do understand that you guys are doing a majority of this on your own, so that's my personal thoughts on it. I've talked to a couple teachers in social studies, and I think we're all pretty the same. But again, don't forget, like, the personality of our department, we are very laid back. So we just kind of roll with the punches. Also, as social studies, I think just because of the topics that we teach, we also, majority of us, have perspective, in the idea of like, well, this could be a lot worse, right? I mean, it could be a lot worse. Like, if the worst part of your day is having to spend an hour listening to me talk about economics on YouTube, that you probably could have a much, much worse day. So that's my thoughts, Drew. I think that's a good question. What are your thoughts on it? How about you? How about that? How about you tell me how you feel about online school? For those of you who just came in while I was answering Drew's question, good morning, Evan. Good morning, Isabel and Morgan. Again, I'll give it another minute or two, excuse me, and see if anybody else joins. We're a little light today, only about 15 people right now, so we'll see what happens. You're not learning. What do you think, Drew? Good morning, Carly. I'm sure he's typing out a long response. There we go. Feel like there's nothing you can replace with. It's interesting. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm very aware of that. I'm aware that it seems like there's a lot of busy work. But you have to understand too, we've never had to do this before. So you just asked a whole group of people that not really used to this to be like, hey, keep giving assignments. And I think if you listen to Dr. Cottrell's message this morning, especially when it comes to the idea of flexibility. I think that's the biggest thing. So like week one, maybe you saw like a knee-jerk reaction, a little bit of a panic, and teachers just started pumping out a ton of content, making sure that they were doing the right thing. And then now, uh, like there's going to be a happy medium. Yeah, exactly, Drew. That makes sense, right? Where you're either like just full bore, tons of stuff overloading you, or kind of laid back, and both sides need to come to like the middle, right? And I think that's because we just didn't know what was going to happen, and we didn't really know that you don't really know what's going to come of this. No, this is a great conversation, seriously, because this is important feedback. Good morning, Sir Johnny. It's important feedback. So it's easier to learn in class, but it's nicer to plan out your day on your own time. Yeah. So you guys are getting like in terms of timing and scheduling, you're getting a taste of what college is like, right? College, you don't take 8 or 9 classes a day. You're going to take 2 or 3 or 4, depending on your schedule, but you have control over that, right? So I know after my freshman year, I decided I was going to try and avoid taking Friday classes. For obvious social reasons. And so I was able to work my schedule. Now, the trade off was I had to either take classes that met for longer, 2 days a week, or I had to start taking night classes. And that's what I started doing. I would take like a Monday night class, and then I would load up my Tuesdays and Thursday schedule. So I would be in class a lot on Tuesday and Thursday. And then Monday, I would have that once a week, 3-hour night class. So you're starting to see the flexibility and kind of how you want your schedule to work out. But it's pretty cool to see that you appreciate actually being in the classroom a little bit more than just trying to do it on your own. And as for the busy works aspect, I'm sorry that's happening to you guys. I don't know your relationships with your teachers, but maybe that's something you can bring up to be like, hey, listen, I'm getting crushed by a whole bunch of other classes. Like maybe we can scale it back a little bit, or maybe pass that feedback on, to other members of the administration, and that might help you out. Again, it's going to be a balancing act. So as much as we all want to just like kind of jump on the teachers and be like, oh, it's like all your fault. You should know better. Give them a little bit of a break, give them some leeway, some time to adjust, and then we'll go from there. And you guys know me. Just be honest with me and just give me your feedback. I will work with all of you. And like Dr. Cottrell said today, which has kind of been my message the entire year, is I care more about you guys learning this stuff, or at least attempting to try and help you learn this stuff, than I do about the assessment part of it. And with that being said, I'm going to kind of transition to getting class started a little bit. But one of the things I was thinking about was this: when it comes to the review sessions, I think I might, instead of streaming the review sessions on YouTube, I think I might do a Zoom meeting session. So this way, when you guys have like practice, you can do the practice there, and then you can show me the notebook, and I can work and answer individual questions with each student. I might even open it up. So like, if you have a question about an assignment and you don't want to email that question out, or it's too much, we can always set up a Zoom where I can go over and work with you guys, even if it's a one-on-one manner. So that's an option kind of going forward. Now you're not forced to go to school from 7 to 3. You can make your own decision. Yeah, no, that's cool, right? And that's probably the best part about going to college. And one of the biggest things that you're going to learn. It's interesting, all the other things that you learn in college outside of like the content that you're there to learn. Time management is a huge one. Scheduling your day, being productive, finding out like what environments you need to be in to be productive. Like some people just love the library. Some people can be productive anywhere. It all depends. So there's tons of distractions, but you definitely have to manage. Oh, you're going to go to college. You're going to go to college. Don't worry. Don't worry about that. Life will go back to normal at some point. Just got to be patient. It's only been 9 days. You've only been home for 9 days, guys. Could be a lot worse, right? It can be very glitchy, and it can be hard to communicate and hear the teacher from your experience. That's interesting. We have all of our department meetings via Zoom. So I guess maybe it depends on the number of people who are connected. I'm not sure, but we have a department meeting every other day, and it's all done through Zoom, and it works out really well. Okay, well, that's something we can test out, guys. Whatever you guys think is the best. Again, you're the ones who have to do it. So I don't know, maybe if it's a Chromebook or something like that. Okay, Google Meeting. Okay, cool. Now, can you interact in terms of like showing stuff back to the teacher? Like, can you video back in Google Meeting? Yeah. All right, cool. All right, well, then we can try that. That works. All right, you guys have any other questions? Anything else you want to talk about before we start? It's nice outside, so at least you guys should be able to go out today, get outside, take a break. All right, cool. So since I got nothing, what I'd like you guys to all do right now is open up the Macro 4.1 PowerPoint where it says Intro to Money. Once you have that open and available for you to go through and for us to kind of go over together, just type something in the chat so I know I can start. All right, so it's Macro 4.1 PowerPoint. Pretty big drop in the number of people watching the stream today. I wonder if everybody's just quitting or if there's other things going on. I will not be streaming on days that we do not meet. Pizza, nice. Go for some pizza. All right. Okay, cool, guys. All right, so not to stress anybody out, but this is probably the more difficult or the most difficult unit in macro, just because we're doing a lot with trying to balance two different graphs. Okay, figure out what is classified as what, and so there's kind of a lot going on. So paying attention to and interacting with me during these streams over the next couple days is going to be really, really important for hopefully advancing your understanding of what we're about to talk about. Okay, so today the first thing we're going to talk about is money. Okay, and why do we use money? So prior to the use of money, we had what was called the barter system, and believe it or not, barter was a great way to help us develop the social contract inside of societies. So for the longest period of time, and this is going to be an oversimplification, but for the longest period of time prior to the advancement of the social contract, we lived in what was called the state of nature. And the state of nature said that man, or humankind rather, would do whatever it takes that's necessary to sustain itself and to sustain their families and their loved ones. And if that meant like killing, stealing, whatever it meant, that was fine because there technically wasn't necessarily any law. Over time, we realized that there probably is a better way to approach this than just stealing from each other and living in complete anarchy. And so that all kind of started with the idea of mutual interest and trade for things that we want instead of stealing. So that's where kind of an oversimplification of where barter came from, right? So barter is just us trading one good or a service for another good or a service. The thing about barter is that barter is unfortunately inefficient, right? Two sides can have two totally different values on items, which could make one side of a trade feel like they're slighted. And it can become difficult where people who had items that were well or more sought after could pretty much not necessarily gouge, but kind of control markets. And it was tough, right? And then the second thing is that some goods and services you just kind of can't break up, right? And so you'd have to assess values for animals to other products, and that's kind of tough and it's inefficient. So we went to the use of money, and that's where we get money from. Okay, so right now, if you are in PowerPoint 4.1, you're going to go to slide 6, and that's where I'm at. Okay, so we're at slide 6, and the idea is, well, what is money? Okay, money, in terms of definition, is anything that we generally accept as use for payment for goods and services. It does not have to be the dollar bill. It does not have to be coin. It could be anything. You want money to be seashells in whatever country you live in, that's fine. You want money to be like used, I don't know, plastic bottles, right? So you want to like take all the Poland Spring bottles and turn that into some type of currency. That is fine as well, right? Money does not have to be anything that is printed or minted in terms of coin. Now, it's a choice that the majority of our countries have made because it seems to be the most efficient way of doing it. But that's what money is. So it's anything that's generally accepted for payments of goods and services. Now, we have two different types of money. The first one we're going to talk about is called commodity money, and the other one that we're going to talk about is called fiat money. Commodity money is kind of what like they use in terms of like prison, right? So it'd be like prison money. So obviously there's very limited cash in prison, so they can use things like cigarettes, right? And they'll assess value to certain items in terms of cigarettes, right? So it's commodity money is something that will perform the function of money, and it has some type of value to it, but that value is assessed by everybody else depending on the situation, right? So gold, silver, we talked about cigarettes. Okay, I appreciate you guys trolling me. Thank you. Fiat money is something that serves as money, but it doesn't necessarily have any other specific use, right? So you can use gold or silver, or even cigarettes can have multiple uses to it, but fiat money is something that does not have any other specific use, right? So paper money, coins, even digital currency, these are all examples of what we would consider to be fiat money. Now, we also live and exist in what we call a fiat money system, which says that money is created and destroyed every day through multiple transactions, thousands to potentially hundreds of thousands of times per day. And we'll talk about the fiat money system a little bit later. But fiat means, the fiat money system means it's a little bit more flexible. Okay, so now let's go to slide number 7. Okay, now slide number 7 talks about this. It talks about the functions of money. Money will serve 3 distinct purposes. Okay, first one is that it's a medium of exchange. It's something that we can actually easily use to buy or goods and services, and we can use it to kind of eliminate complications. It's a physical medium, right? The dollar bill, physical medium, quarter, half dollar, Sacagawea coin, whatever it might be, all physical mediums. Okay. Number 2 is what we call a unit of account. It's a measure of value. Money provides us with a convenient standard by which we can apply value to multiple items across the entire economy. Okay. Everything is based off of the idea that a dollar is a dollar, no more, no less. So now we can apply value to goods and services across multiple markets because we have something that is a standard measure. And the third thing it gives us is the store of value. Money doesn't have an expiration date. I know some of us might feel like if we don't spend the money in our pocket, like it's just going to magically disappear or it's not going to be worth as much. And Pedro, relax before you jump in there and say, well, money today is not the same value as money tomorrow. We get that. We understand about buying power. However, money doesn't have an expiration date. Okay, a dollar will always be a dollar. The buying power of the dollar is what changes, but the dollar itself is always going to be a dollar, no more, no less. Okay, and that's just kind of gives us a store of value. Those are the 3 distinct purposes of money. If you guys have any questions about that, let me know. Say so in the chat. If not, I'm going to move on. Okay. So slides 9 and 10 are multiple choice questions for you guys to practice if you have any questions about that. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to slide 11 because this is a question that is commonly asked in class. Yeah, Pedro, sometimes you just got to kind of get out in front of the trolling before it actually happens. All right. Okay, so let's look at slide number 11. All right, and slide 11 says this. Okay, what backs the money supply? This is a common question that I usually get from most econ students, and the idea is that there's nothing that backs the money. Right? We live in a fiat money system. Okay, it is a flexible money system. What you are seeing right now, okay, in the current world economies is this: credit, which is what the modern economy is built on, the idea of credit. Credit has tremendous flexibility, and it's able to create and build these very robust economies and markets like you currently exist in today. Unfortunately, credit also has the ability to destroy, right? If I don't get paid the money I'm owed, that I expect because I either lent it out on credit or you purchase something with credit, if I'm not getting the money that I need to pay my bills, then the people who I owe money to, they can't pay their bills, and so on and so forth. And so if we don't have credit and credit ceases to exist, or we don't pay on our credit, it all comes crashing down. Okay. And so the money supply and what backs the money supply is our general understanding that a dollar is worth a dollar, right? We have confidence in that currency. We all widely accept it. And so the idea that we need gold or silver to back each dollar, or some type of precious metal or jewel, whatever it might be, to back the value of the money, is kind of not how we exist anymore, right? We've moved off the gold standard and the idea that we generally accept that money is money and that it serves all three of those purposes. The second is that money is scarce. Obviously, the scarcity of money means not that there is so much of it in the economy, cue Pedro's joke, but that it can't be easily reproduced. So prior to the existence of the Federal Reserve, at one point in time in the United States, there was 33,000 different forms of acceptable currency, right? So that kind of makes the value of different currencies different. Now, again, the majority of those currencies were things that we would consider to be like gift cards today or whatever it might be, but you could use them at other stores and individuals. So pharmacies could print their own money, and you could use like this pharmacy money at like this thrift store and whatever it might be. And it was all kind of crazy and wacky. And so now that we have the standard denomination, we have the standard, money system, we have the dollar, the $5, $10, $20, $100 bill, $50 bill, so on and so forth. That kind of makes it difficult for everybody to kind of recreate. Okay, so there is a scarcity of money. And the third thing is that it's portable and dividable, right? Money has to be easily transported. We see this more so than ever. I know me personally, I don't carry a wallet usually, or I very rarely have cash on me because I am very forgetful, so I lose my wallet. So a majority of my transactions take place digitally, which today is easier than it's ever been, right? And so there is portability and dividability in our money. We can break it down. We can pay people in fractions, whatever it might be, okay? So when we look at this, all right, the purchasing power of money, is the amount of goods and services that money can buy. And we know this because we've already talked about inflation, the value of money, and things like that. Okay. Any questions about that? All right. So let's go to slide 13. And this is where it starts to get a little tricky, but it is pretty easy. Okay. So we're on slide 13. So how we classify money. Okay. So whenever you hear the word liquid, or liquidity, is when you are talking about how easily you can change, an asset into cash. Hold on, guys, 1 second.
Okay, watch this. And look at it.
Awesome. Sorry, guys. Son brought down. He wanted to show me something. All right. So we're talking about the idea of what is liquid and what is not liquid. Okay. Liquidity means is how quickly can you turn an asset into cash or some type of medium of exchange. So whenever we look at the value or the net worth of individuals, right? So anytime you see like these lists that get printed of like, the wealthiest celebrities, wealthiest athletes, things like that, the question you have to ask is, well, how liquid are they, right? Is their money, is their value, is their worth tied up into other businesses that have a high valuation, or can they just go to the bank and take out cash right now? So the more liquid you are, the more readily available your cash is. So if I had a net worth of, I don't know, $1 million, but it was based on properties and business I own, and I didn't really have a lot of cash, well, if I was to sell my business, sure, I'm going to get that money that it's valued at, but how quickly can I do that? That's going to take a long time. So that's not really liquid. Condensing, assets or valuables, things like that, that could reduce my liquidity. If I have $1 million in my bank account, whether it's my checking account, or other type of money market accounts, that's going to be way more liquid than that of it being tied up in a business. So how the Fed classifies money is in actually 3 different ways, but we only learn about 2. And we call them M1, M2, and M3. So let's look at the PowerPoint slide. M1 is the highest rate of liquidity. It means same as cash, right? Pretty much same thing. So first is just currency. Any type of cash, coins, dollars, whatever it might be, that is in circulation. That is in M1. We classify that in M1. The second is what we call checkable bank deposits. Now, that seems like a really unnecessary way to say a checking account, but it's important to note that language. That language is going to be used multiple times throughout the remainder of the course, specifically in free response questions. And it's a way that we express checking accounts in economic language. And the third thing is traveler's checks, which is kind of interesting, right? But traveler's checks are pretty much same as cash. You go to an institution, you give them cash on hand, and they give you a check that is widely accepted around the world, and that's what a traveler's check is. It's kind of interesting. Traveler's checks are pretty much almost outdated now due to digital currency and us being able to travel and use debit cards and credit cards, even overseas. All you have to do is just kind of notify your bank. But traveler's checks is considered to be in M1. Okay, so those three things are what we call M1. Anybody have any questions about that before I get into M2? No? Okay, great. Now, M2 is what we call closest to money, right? Almost same as cash. So M2 is anything that would be classified in M1 as well as these following three things. Okay, so number one is a savings deposit. Okay, so these are what we call money market accounts, right? So money market accounts, savings, they're very, very similar to that of a checkable bank deposit, but a savings deposit has a little bit longer processing time. So it's not quite as fast as cash, but it is very, very close to. Okay, typically they also earn some type of interest. Interest has to be calculated, things like that. Okay. Two is what we call time deposits. These are usually known as what we call CDs. A CD stands for a certificate of deposit. A certificate of deposit is an exchange. It's a financial asset that you would purchase from a bank. It has a maturity period, and what you would do is you would pay into it, and after a certain amount of time, you would be guaranteed a specific yield from the bank. In the 1980s and early 90s, certificate of deposits are actually a really great investment tool at them. But since then, obviously, yields have come down a little bit. So there are other financial tools you can kind of use to earn money. Yeah, that's kind of like bonds. They're like mini bonds. Um, okay, and then number three is money market funds. This would be just like a regular money market account. Okay, so again, all of these really, really close to cash. Very much easier to convert to cash than say other types of assets. Okay, all you have to do is go to the bank and you can make a basic transaction. All right, and then what happens from there is that is what we consider to be M2. Okay. M1 and M2 typically earn little to no interest. When you put money in a savings account, you're not going to be earning a very, very high rate of interest. Okay. So the opportunity cost of holding cash, okay, is just the interest that you could be earning. So there is very, very little opportunity cost. And that's why we kind of calculate and use changes to M1 and M2 to look at what happens to the money supply. Okay. All right. So slide 14 and slide 14 is a multiple choice. Okay. Question. Yeah. So slide 14 is multiple choice question. Slide 15 is going to get into the financial sector. So this is what we're going to do. Okay. We've been going at it now for about 28, 29 minutes. So we're going to take a quick break. Okay. I'm going to give you guys like 2-minute break. If you want to get up, stretch your legs, go grab something to drink, go grab something to eat. I will be right back. When I get back, we will finish the PowerPoint, talk about how to calculate the time value of money, which is the meat of today's lesson. And then that will be it. Okay. All right. I'll be right back. See you guys in 2 minutes. If you have anything, questions, anything you want to talk about, feel free to put it in the chat and I'll get to it when I get back. All right. Thanks, guys. Be right back. Okay, I am back. When you guys are back and ready to go, just say something in the chat and I know I can get started once you're back. Sorry, my son needed help. It's the only thing that kind of stinks about doing this is that sometimes I'm gonna have to get up to help them. I appreciate your humor for actually writing something in the chat. So if you want to talk about stuff that's surreal, my wife's boss, her supervising physician, has family in Taiwan, and they sent over masks and liners for masks and gloves for our family here in the United States. So it's pretty interesting. It's really, really nice of them. So interesting stuff. Have any of you guys been out? Have any of you guys gone like food shopping or been to any stores that have been open at all? I went food shopping yesterday, and it's just weird. Just weird, like I went to Costco. They were counting the number of people that were coming into Costco. They normally have a counter, but they were making sure that everybody was spaced out. Yeah, everybody's on edge. Round Valley Reservoir. But yeah, when I was out at Costco, they had like markers for people to pick up carts when they were waiting to get in every 6 feet, and really making sure and walking around, making sure people weren't standing on top of each other. Everybody's got like Clorox wipes and things like that to open and get stuff off the work. You don't think you've left your house for a week? You should probably go outside. Yeah, I would definitely go to Round Valley. Guy in a gas mask. That's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting stuff. All right, so welcome back to everybody who's back. Okay, let's finish this up. We'll go through this. We'll kind of get this done, and then we'll be done for the day. Again, always appreciate you guys, logging in, giving your time and paying attention and see what's going on. Okay. All right. So here we go. We're on slide 15 of the 4.1 PowerPoint. All right. And it's the financial sector. So this is what we're talking about, guys. We're talking about the financial sector. That means we're going to be talking about the Fed. We're going to talk about other different types of lending institutions. We're going to talk about interest rates, both nominal and real interest rate. And then we'll talk specifically about monetary policy. How does all of this stuff impact our market? And then we're going to talk about the creation and destruction of money in circulation. So let's just go through these definitions real quick. Okay, first one is a financial sector. Okay, it's a network of institutions that are actually going to link us, both borrowers and lenders. Okay, that includes banks, mutual funds, your pension funds, okay, and any other type of financial intermediaries in the financial sector. So if you're someone who is looking at this and trying to you want to go to school to get into, say, like trading, wealth management, even asset management at the highest level in terms of like working for hedge funds and stuff like that, then you would be looking at like the private equities market. And that's what your focus would be. You'd probably be like a finance major. Some schools don't have finance. So you'd be like an economics major, and then you would have to kind of do the finance portion on your own. But that's what you'd be looking at. So that's kind of the financial sector. The next thing we'll talk about is assets. Asset is anything that is tangible or intangible that is owned. So every time you always hear about the easiest discussion of assets is cash in bank, okay, or money that you have in addition to, or an asset would be like your house. If you own a house, that is an asset. When you go to apply for a loan, so specifically when you go to apply for a mortgage, they're going to look at things. They're going to look at your credit score. They're going to look at, well, how much money do you have in the bank? What are your assets right now and the liquidity of your assets, right? So since the 2008 financial crisis, when people were just writing mortgages with their eyes closed and giving it to anybody that had a pulse, there are a lot of requirements now that you need to have in order to receive a loan. Typically, banks want to see 3 months of reserves in assets. What does that mean? So before a bank is going to give you a loan, they're going to look at all of the money that you pay each month in your bills, And they're going to look at the amount of income that you bring in. And they're going to make sure, okay, if you were to lose your job, do you have at least 3 months to give yourself a buffer so for you to find a job again? Will you pay your mortgage? Because if you can't cover your mortgage, that means you're a riskier borrower, which means that they're going to charge you more money because the risk of them loaning you money is higher. Okay, so that's what we mean by assets. Liability is anything that you owe personally, credit card debt. Maybe you have I guess can't say that. Credit card debt. You owe somebody lunch money. Whatever it might be, those are assets. Anything that you owe. Okay. Finally, a loan. A loan is just an agreement between two individual parties, whether that's a bank or a person. Okay, and a borrower. So it's an agreement between a lender and a borrower, and the fee to borrow that money is usually the interest rate. Okay, and that's what we look at now in the financial sector. When we get to bank balance sheets, when this is where it starts to get confusing. Okay, and we have what's called the old T account, right? So if any of you are in accounting right now, you have the T account, right? So you have assets over here and liabilities over here, and anytime you earn money, it goes under assets. Anytime you lose money or you owe money, it goes under liabilities. And at the bottom, you either get a number that's red or black. You always want to be in the black, right? Because that means that you're making money. That means that your assets are greater than your liabilities. If you're in the red, that means that you have too many liabilities and you probably should find another revenue stream. Okay, so for banks, the T account is opposite, right? The T account is liabilities, then assets. And the reason why is this. Any type of bank deposit is a liability. If I go to a bank and I deposit $1,000, the bank is now liable to give me that money. I have to be able to come back in at any given time and be like, okay, I'm going to write a check for $900. When I give the bank the check, they're going to give me the $900 back because all a check is just a written command to pay someone an order of whatever the amount is, of X dollars. Okay. So if I write a check for $900, it means I'm commanding the bank to give me my $900. If I write a check to my wife for $900, I'm commanding the bank to pay my wife $900. That's all that a check really is. It's just kind of like a written command or authorization to pay someone money from your account. And so for a bank, that is a liability. They have to have some type of money that they're looking at, right? It's the money that they owe individuals. Assets would be things like loans and stuff like that, equity, whatever it might be. All right, and we'll get more to that when we actually have the T accounts. But that's just an example of how assets and liabilities are kind of swapped or switched for banks compared to individuals. All right, so that's slide 15. All right, so let's go to slide 17. So slide 16 just talks about investment, right? And this is where it gets a little bit tricky. This is not a personal finance class. I will give you little like tidbits here and there. When we get to the '08 financial crisis, I'll talk to you more about the mortgage industry and what exactly happened in 2008 and things like that. But this is not a personal finance class. So anytime we ever talk about investment in this class, we're always referring to, business spending on capital goods, right? However, all right, when we talk about personal finance, we're going to refer to these things as financial assets, or financial instruments, whatever it might be. But we're not going to talk about it as investment, okay? And even though I've been doing this for a little while and I've been teaching this class, sometimes I do say investment, even when we talk about personal finance. So I apologize, but it is something that we have to try and condition ourselves to do. Okay, so let's look at slide 17. And slide 17, we'll talk to you a little bit about the difference between bonds and stocks. Okay, so the idea is this. I'm just going to read through this and we can go through this together. Pretend that you're actually going to start your own lemonade stand, which with social distancing, probably not a great idea right now, unless you do like contactless delivery, right? So you could have like an Uber lemonade stand. All right, so pretend you're going to start this stand and you're going to need some money to get started. Well, what are you going to do? How are you going to collect that money? How are you going to start generating revenue? Okay, first is you can ask your grandmother for $100. And if your grandmother says yes, and she gives that to you, well, your grandmother just bought herself a bond. Okay, and a bond, by definition, is a loan or some type of like IOU that represents debt that either a government, an individual, or a specific business has to repay to the lender. A bondholder has no ownership in the company. And that's a big difference. A bond is just a really fancy IOU that is going to have some type of rate of return on it, right? And that's what a bond is. So believe it or not, if you've been borrowing lunch money or borrowing money from friends, and I'm sure there are a couple of you out there, the person that's notorious for borrowing and never paying back, people who are giving you money, well, they're technically investing in you, okay? And they have no ownership in whatever you've done, but you just owe them the money and maybe a little bit extra, okay? So they bought bonds from you. All right, now stocks are a little bit different. Stock is a certificate of ownership, right? A stock is when a company is going to divvy up portions of itself and it's going to sell ownership out to investors in exchange for money, and they will give ownership in exchange for revenue. It's a way that companies can kind of raise money to help them with the further development of their company, whether it's they want to continue research and development on new products, and then people can obviously gamble on them and bet on them, buy them, sell them, and try and make money based on the ownership of a company. And this all has to do with changes in things like what is the company's revenue? Are they making a profit? Do they have a new product coming out? So all of these things can lead to changes in stock prices. But it's a representation of ownership. It's a certificate of ownership, and that's what a stock is. There is a limited amount of stock that can be sold, bought and sold for each company. Each company's stock numbers are different. Okay, so there's not like a uniform number amount of stock that each company is going to be divided into, right? The larger the company, typically more stock they'll have to offer, and vice versa. The thing you need to know, though, is that the controlling ownership of the company, okay, is not stockholders. It is going to be the board of that company, which is going to be responsible for managing the long-term health of the company. That is the board. Underneath the board is where you're going to have the higher-ups, if you will, or the executive level that deals with it. So like the CEO, the CIO, the CFO, all of these individuals are responsible for running the day-to-day operations of a corporation. Okay, they run the company during the day. The board makes overarching decisions that kind of do like the long-term trajectory of the company, and stockholders give input on day-to-day kind of situations through the buying and selling of stock, as well as through stockholders or shareholder meetings where they can kind of voice their opinion. All right. So that's what the difference between bonds and stocks. If you go to slide 19, and we talk about bonds and interest rates, this is really important, and this is kind of a key point in what we're talking about now. Okay, a bond is issued at a specific interest rate that will not change throughout the life of a bond. So there is no such thing as a fluctuating bond rate. Now, the rates of bonds will change, but once you have a bond, you're locked into that rate. So when Pedro earlier asked about how CDs and bonds are different, their CDs typically are bought and sold, and they're kind of given on a small scale, whereas a bond is done in a larger scale across multiple banks, institutions, things like that. So bonds are kind of more widely used, but they're pretty much the same thing. All right. So an example, if we look at a 30-year U.S. Treasury bond that has a face value of $1,000 and the interest rate is 5%, each year for the next 30 years or the life of the bond, you will get $50 per year. Okay, and that is how a bond works, right? So if the interest rate falls and new bonds are being issued at 3%, people are going to want to purchase the older 5% bonds. So the older bonds that carry the higher interest rates are going to have way more value to that, right? So if you want to, you can sell your bond before it's mature. If you sold the original 5% bond, buyers would bid up the price since they would rather have 5%. So what does this mean? Bond prices and interest rates have an inverse relationship. So if I am going to be issuing new bonds at 3% interest rate, and I have a bunch of old bonds at 5% interest rate, now I can let the bidding begin. You want a bond that gives you a better return than current day bonds? That's fine. But now you have to bid against all these other people to purchase my bond with the promise of a greater rate of return. Okay, so what happens is as interest rates are low, bond prices get bid up for the older, better interest rate bonds, and bond prices will increase. As interest rates increase, there's no longer a bidding war, okay, to purchase previously issued bonds, since the interest rate that you're currently getting on new bonds is much higher, okay, than the interest rates that you would currently own or privately negotiate. So there's that inverse relationship. So interest rates are low. I'm now going to the private market to purchase bonds. Interest rates are high. I'm going right to the bank and I'm purchasing bonds from the bank because that's where I'm going to get the better deal. All right. Anybody have any questions about bonds before we start the time value of money? I know I'm kind of throwing a lot at you guys, and I'm just kind of going through this pretty quickly. Um, yeah. All right. No questions? Okay. So let's go all the way down to slide 24. Almost there, guys. There's 3 more slides, okay, for us to look at. And then I have some practice for us to do, and then we'll be done. Okay. So just a few more minutes to hang in there. All right. So what are we looking at today? Okay. Today, we are going to be talking about the time value of money. All right. And so right now, I'm going to kind of not do everything that is on the PowerPoint slides. So I almost just knocked my table over. So if you want to listen and kind of, just kind of go through it with me. If you are taking notes right now, my advice is I'm going to give you 2. Well, never mind. It's in the next slide. All right. So here we go. The question for you guys is this. If I was to give you $100 today, okay, I'm going to give you $100 today, or $200 in 2 years. So I know the slide says $200 in 5 years, but I'm going to do 2 years for the sake of simplicity here. Okay, so you had to choose. Am I going to give you $100 today, or am I going to give you $200 2 years from now, right? So you're going to graduate, you're going to come back in 2 years, and I'll give you the $200, and we're going to assume that the interest rate is 10%. So that's a question we need to figure out. And in order to answer this question, we have to calculate what we call the future value and the present value, okay, of money. So real quick, go to slide 26, all right? So in slide 26, this is going to give us the calculate the future value of money. So you're able to determine the future value of any amount of money, okay, if you know the specific interest rate and the number of years, okay? So if you look at the equation, okay, the equation for the future value of money is X number of dollars. So whatever the dollar value I give you. So in this case, if we're going to set this equation up, okay, it's going to be $100 today, okay? So it would be $100. So X dollars would be 100, okay, times 1 plus 0.1, because 10% would represent the interest rate, all right? And then that would be to the second power, if you will, okay? To the second power. And that's going to give us, all right, the value of money. So we know this. If I was to look at the future value of money, okay, and if I was to do it in 1 year increments, then I would set it up like 100 times, okay, 1 plus 0.1, all right, to the first power, which obviously you don't have to do. And that would let me know that 1 year from now, that $100 that I gave you today would be actually worth 110, okay? If I was to look at that in 2 years, okay, all I have to do is you're going to set the exact same equation. So it'd be $100 times 1 plus 0.1, and it would be to the second power. And what that would let me know is that in 2 years from now, my $100 would be worth $165.29. Okay. So we know that that's a future value. The question is, though, is, well, what is the present value of $100 in 1 year if the interest rate is 10%? Okay. So how to find present value is this. So go to slide 27. Okay. And present value tells us the current worth of some future amount of money. So the question is, well, what is my $100 going to be worth? Okay. Be worth in 2 years, right? So let's look at it like this. Sorry, I'm just bringing it up. Okay, so present value is this. Present value is X amount of dollars. So in this case, it is going to be, all right, the amount of money that we're looking to assess what it's worth is going to be in the future, right? Or the present value of future money. Okay, so it would be X amount of dollars over 1 plus the interest rate, okay, to the nth power, which would be the nth is the number of years that we're looking at. All right, so if our interest rate is 10%, what the present value of $100 is going to be $90.91. Well, how did I figure that out? I took the $100 that we're looking at, over 1 plus 0.1, which is 10%, okay, to the first degree, and that gives us $90.91. So that means the future value of this $100 is $90.91 when the interest rate is 10%. All right. Well, what does that mean to answer our question? The question is, well, if I had $100 today, would I rather the $100 or $200 in 2 years? Okay. So if I was to calculate the value of the $200 today that I'm going to get in 2 years, I would take $200 over 1 plus 0.1 to the second power. Okay. And that's going to give me the $165, okay, and 29 cents. I know this is probably really, really confusing. Okay. So what I would want to do is I want to do some practice together, if that's possible. Okay. Just practice calculating the current value and practice calculating the future value. Okay. And this represents a pretty small portion of the AP exam. Okay. There's usually only maybe 1 or 2 questions on this, so it's not a high percentage. So we'll be able to kind of do this together and with some feedback, and hopefully it'll kind of make things a little bit easier. All right. So right now in the chat, what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to put up the question for you guys to answer, and I would like you to do it on your own and then put your answers in the chat. Okay. So we're going to calculate the future value of putting $1,000 into a savings account at 4% interest. Okay, so the question is this. I want you to calculate the future value of putting $1,000 into a savings account at 4% interest for 1 year. What would the future value be if you left your money in savings for 2 years? Okay, so, and how about this? Instead of you guys doing this on your own, let's kind of we'll walk through this. This is the only future value practice that I have. We're going to do more practice on the present value. All right. So how we would set this up, okay? We're trying to find future value. We know that future value is equal to the number of dollars, right, times 1 plus the interest rate, okay, to the nth degree, which is based on the number of years. All right, so for this case, the amount of money that we're looking at in our savings account is $1,000. So our X is 1,000. So it's going to be 1,000, okay, times 1 plus 0.04, because our interest rate is 4%, to the second power. Okay. Hello, Jordan. No, I do not. All right. So it's 1,000 times 1 plus 0.04 to the second degree. Yeah, this is a school class. This is an AP economics class in New Jersey. When you guys have an answer to the question, just type it in the chat. Awesome. Thanks for joining, man. You're more than welcome to join in. This is macroeconomics. All right, for those of you guys putting the answer in the chat, great job. Okay, the answer, the future value of that $1,000 in savings, okay, with 4% interest, over the period of a year, okay, would be $1,081.60. Okay, awesome. Do you guys have any questions about calculating future value? Because it's pretty simple. Just have to remember the equation. If you don't have any questions, okay, what I would like you guys to do right now is on the Google Classroom, if you could pull up the worksheet that I shared with you guys. Okay, I put it on the stream. It's the present value worksheet, and we're going to look at that together. Once you have the present value worksheet up, just give me something in the chat just so I know, and I will start. We're going to do two of these together, guys. I'm going to have you guys do the third on your own, and then we're done for the day. So just hang in there. We're almost done. I appreciate you guys who've stuck around and kind of keep doing this. All right, so let's look at it. So number one, if your grandma said you could have $5,000 when you graduate from college in 4 years, what is that money worth today? Okay, so what you need to do is you need to calculate the answer when the real interest rate is 3%, 5%, and 10%. So now we want to see what is the present value of the money that we've been given. Okay, so I'll set up the first one and then you guys can do it from there. All right. So in this case, the present value, we're looking at a denomination of $5,000, right? So we're going to have $5,000 is the amount of money that we're looking at. And it's going to be 5,000 over 1 plus 0.03 because our interest rate is 3%. And it's going to be to the fourth power. So the present value for the first thing that we're looking at is going to be $5,000 divided by 1 plus 0.03 to the fourth power. Okay, and that's going to give us the present value of the $5,000 in 4 years at 3% interest rate. Once you have the answer, just type it in the chat. Only want you to do 3% for now. 3% interest. Good. Good, guys. Okay, that is good. All right, it's going to be $4,442.43 or 44 cents. Either is acceptable. Okay, you can round up, and you're always going to go 2 decimal places because we're looking at money. The reality is that if you ever have to do this on the AP exam, you're going to have pretty easy, simple numbers to work on your own because you don't have a calculator. Okay, awesome. So now what I'd like you guys to do on your own, set up your own equation. Do it the present value at 5% interest. When you're done, type the answer in the chat. Good, guys. Yep. So if you're getting the answer of $4,113.51, that is correct. It's going to be $5,000 over 1 plus 0.05 to the fourth power. Good stuff. All right, last one for number 1. Okay, calculate the present value at 10% interest. When you have an answer, type it in the chat, please and thank you. What I'll do is I'll stop it after this. We'll be done after this one. I'll have you guys do 2 and 3 on your own, and that's what we'll start class with tomorrow. Good stuff, guys. Awesome. Yep, the answer is $3,415.07. If you're still trying to figure that out, it's going to be 5,000 over 1 plus 0.1 to the fourth power, and that gives us $3,415.07. All right, awesome. Okay, guys, I'll stop it there. I'd like you to do number 2 and number 3 on the worksheet. Hopefully, that's not too much work for you guys to have for next class. And then the next 2 classes, I won't give you guys any work to do on your own because we have the assessment that is due on Monday. All right. If there's anything you guys need from me, any questions you might have, I'll stick around like I always do for the next couple minutes, answer those questions. If not, thank you to those of you who joined today and stayed the entire time. I appreciate it. Hopefully, this is helpful. It's beautiful outside, so go outside, run around, enjoy yourselves, get some fresh air. Just remember to maintain some social distancing. All right. So for those of you who are leaving right now, thank you very much. If you have any questions, guys, just put it in the chat and I'll hang out. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye, guys. You're welcome, guys. Have a great day. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Doesn't seem like there are any additional questions. So with that being said, I'm going to shut down the stream. Thanks again, guys. See you later. Bye-bye.